Hello students, myself Bhupinder Kaur, lecturer biology from Government Model School 3B1 Mohali. Dear students, let's continue with our second chapter, that is sexual reproduction in flowering plants. Dear students, in my last video I discussed about pollination and its types, and today we will be discussing another very important topic, that is double fertilization. Double fertilization is a unique feature of angiosperms. What does it mean? That this character is present only in case of angiosperms. And as angiosperms, they are the dominant flora of the world. So we can say that double fertilization is an advanced character of angiosperms. Now, how does this double fertilization occurs? Let's discuss it. Fertilization will occur when the male gamete that will combine with the female gamete or the egg. Now this male gamete that is formed from this pollen grain, we can say that this pollen grain is the first cell of the male gametophyte. And the development of male gametophyte from this pollen grain, this actually takes place within the anther. And this type of development is known as what? This is known as precocious. This is known as precocious development. Now this male gametophyte, which is formed from this pollen grain, that is shed over the surface of the stigma, either at 2-celled stage or they are shed at 3-celled stage. Now we all know what is 2-celled stage. 2-celled stage is represented by one vegetative cell and one generative cell. Whereas the 3-celled stage, that is represented by one vegetative cell and two male gametes. So these pollen grains, they are shed over the surface of the stigma either at 2-celled stage or they are shed at the 3-celled stage. So if they are shed at 3-celled stage, they will not divide further. But if they are shed at 2-celled stage, then naturally the one generative cell that will divide and that will form what? Two male gametes. Now when these pollen grains, they are shed over the surface of the stigma, then there will occur a communication between the pollen grains and the stigma. And this communication will occur with the help of certain chemicals. Now, this pollen grain, it is having the outer wall called exine. And this exine, it has a chemical known as sporopollenin. And this sporopollenin, that is formed from the tapetum part of the anther. So we can say that this exine part, it has chemicals which are sporophytic in origin. Whereas the inner wall, which is known as intine, that is formed by the pollen grain itself. So it has chemicals which are actually gametophytic in origin. Now this stigma or the carpal part, it is also having certain chemicals, and these chemicals are also sporophytic in origin. Now there will occur a communication between the chemicals of the pollen grains. The pollen grain, it is having the chemicals of both gametophytic and sporophytic in origin, whereas the carpal, it is having the chemicals only of sporophytic origin. And if there occurs a matching between the two chemicals, if these chemicals, they are found to be compatible with each other, then naturally the pollen grain will germinate or it will not. अगर pollen grain जो है किसी दूसरे species का shed हो गया है, suppose this is a rose flower और इसके ऊपर mango flower का pollen grain shed हुआ है, तो naturally chemicals की matching जो है वो नहीं होगी. That is due to the interspecific sterility, and this pollen grain will not germinate. और अगर सेम स्पीशीज का शेड हुआ है, इसके ऊपर रोज फ्लावर का pollen grain शेड हुआ है, तो naturally this pollen grain, it will germinate because there is a compatibility between these pollen grain and the stigma part. Now this pollen grain, it has formed this pollen tube, and this pollen tube is actually the extension of the intine. This is actually the extension of the intine. And as you can see in this diagram, that the tip of the pollen tube, that is occupied by what? That is occupied by the tube nucleus. This tube nucleus is actually the nucleus of the vegetative cell, and it is followed by the two male gametes. These are the two male gametes, and this pollen tube is actually trying to reach up to the egg. Now how it will reach up to the egg? It will have to create the passage. अगर तो स्टाइल हॉलो है then there is no problem, the pollen tube will move freely. बट अगर स्टाइल जो है वो सॉलिड है तो इस केस में pollen tube को अपना एक पैसेज जो है वो क्रिएट करना पड़ेगा. यहाँ पे pollen tube क्या करेगा बच्चों? यहाँ पे pollen tube कई एंजाइम सिक्रीट करेगा, जैसे कि पेक्टिनेस एंजाइम सिक्रीट होगी, हाइड्रोलिटिक एंजाइम्स जो है वो सिक्रीट होगी, और ये एंजाइम्स जो है वो अपना पैसेज क्रिएट करेंगी सो दैट दिस मेल गैमेट इट रीचेस अप टू द egg. Now naturally एक chemical communication हो रहा है. How these two pollen tubes, they are knowing their destination, they are knowing the position of the egg. Actually the egg that is surrounded by two synergids, and these synergids they also secrete certain chemicals so that the pollen tube it gets attracted towards this egg. And there is a concentration gradient of boron, ionositol complex, and due to this concentration different, boron is an element and ionositol that is a sugar. So these chemicals they are actually secreted by the synergids जो कि अट्रैक्ट करेंगे pollen tube को towards the egg so that the pollen tube it can reach up to the egg, and it should start the process of what? It should start the process of fertilization. Now fertilization was actually discovered by Strasburger in the year 1884, but the double fertilization that was discovered by Navaschin, and it was discovered by in Fritillaria and Lilium. So let us study this process of double fertilization in detail through this small video clip.
Now next, another very important topic is double fertilization. Dear students, double fertilization is a unique feature of angiosperms. एंजियोस्पर्म्स का ये यूनिक फीचर है डबल फर्टिलाइजेशन, विच मीन्स दैट डबल फर्टिलाइजेशन इज़ ओनली प्रेजेंट इन एंजियोस्पर्म्स. इट इज़ एब्सेंट इन द रेस्ट of the plants. Now what happens in double fertilization? We all know that the pollen grains, they are either shed at 2-celled stage or they are shed at 3-celled stage. तो अगर तो pollen grains 3-celled stage में shed हुए हैं over the stigma, so they will not divide further. But if they are shed at the 2-celled stage, then what will happen? When they will be moving towards the egg through the style, when they will be moving, then they will divide. It means जो generative cell था that will divide and that will form what? 2 male gametes. So if the pollen grain is shed at 3-celled stage, it is not going to divide further. But if it is shed at 2-celled stage, then the generative cell of that pollen grain will divide and it will form what? 2 male gametes. Now what is double fertilization? Like here in this diagram you can see that these 2 male gametes, they have reached up to the egg. Now this egg was surrounded by synergids और मैंने तुम्हें ये पहले बताया है कि ये जो सिनर्जिड्स हैं ये कुछ केमिकल सिक्रीट करते हैं जो कि अट्रैक्ट करता है पॉलन ट्यूब को टुवर्ड द एग। नाउ ये पॉलन ट्यूब ने अपना रास्ता जो है वो कैसे ढूंढा है, सो दैट इट कैन रीच अप टू द एग, दैट इज थ्रू द केमिकल्स विच आर रिलीज्ड बाय दिस synergids. Now what will happen out of these two male gametes? One male gamete, like here it is shown in this arrow, one male gamete that is combining with the egg to form what? To form zygote. This process is known as syngamy or generative fertilization. And what the other male gamete will do? This other male gamete will combine with two polar nuclei present in the central cell to form what? To form pen, primary endosperm nucleus. And this process is known as what? This is known as ट्रिपल फ्यूजन। इसको ट्रिपल फ्यूजन क्यों कह रहे हैं? बिकॉज इसमें तीन चीज़ें आपस में फ्यूज़ कर रही हैं, 3 न्यूक्लियाई। कौन से? 2 पोलर न्यूक्लियाई एंड 1 मेल गैमीट, मेल गैमीट। क्योंकि ये 3 न्यूक्लियाई दे आर फ्यूजिंग विद वन अनदर, देयरफॉर इट इज़ नोन एज व्हाट? ट्रिपल फ्यूजन। सो in double fertilization, two events they are occurring. One is syngamy and other is triple fusion. Like here we will see in this diagram, like so in double fertilization, the first male gamete that is combining with the egg to form the zygote. Now male gamete is also haploid, egg is also haploid, and the zygote will be, which will be formed, that will be diploid. And this zygote will form what? This zygote will form the future embryo. And this process is known as what? This is known as syngamy or generative fertilization. And the second male gamete that will combine with two polar nuclei, which is also known as, जिसको हम क्या कहते हैं? सेकेंडरी न्यूक्लियस भी कहते हैं। टू फॉर्म व्हाट? टू फॉर्म पेन। ना मेल गैमीट हैप्लॉइड है, जो 2 पोलर न्यूक्लियाई हैं दे वर डिप्लॉयड, तो नेचुरली जो पेन बनेगा वो ट्रिप्लॉयड होगा। एंड दिस प्रोसेस इज नोन एज ट्रिपल फ्यूजन बिकॉज it involves the fusion of 3 nuclei, one of male gamete and the other of 2 polar nuclei, and this process is known as vegetative fertilization. और ये पेन क्या बनाएगा बच्चों? ये पेन बनाएगा future endosperm. So this process is known as double fertilization because it involves 2 events. One is syngamy and the other is triple fusion. Now next in this diagram there are shown the products which are formed after the double fertilization. So after the double fertilization, one product which is formed, that is the zygote. This zygote is going to form the embryo, and the other product which is formed, that is pen, primary endosperm nucleus. और अब ये जो central cell थी जिसके अंदर 2 polar nuclei present थे, now we are calling it PEC, primary endosperm cell, and this is going to form the what? This is going to form endosperm. So in double fertilization, 2 events they are occurring simultaneously. One is the syngamy and other is the triple fusion. और बाकी हम देख रहे हैं कि एंटीपोडल्स जो हैं वो भी डीजनरेट कर गए हैं, सिनर्जिड्स जो हैं they will also degenerate to provide the nourishment. Now, so here it is written the definition of double fertilization: the process of fertilization which occurs twice in the same embryo sac at a time by the 2 male gametes is called double fertilization. वैसे तो fertilization डिस्कवर किया था स्ट्रॉसबर्गर ने 1884 में, बट जो डबल fertilization था that was discovered by Navaschin in 1897 in Lilium and Fritillaria species. सो बच्चों, अगर तो मेल गैमीट्स जो हैं दे आर ब्रॉट टू दी एग थ्रू दी पॉलन ट्यूब, जैसे हम यहाँ पे देख रहे हैं कि मेल गैमीट्स जो हैं दे आर ब्रॉट टू दी एग थ्रू दिस पॉलन ट्यूब। तो इस प्रोसेस को हम बच्चे क्या कहते हैं? वी कॉल इट साइफोनोगैमी। दिस इज नोन एज साइफोनोगैमी। सो यहाँ पे हम देख रहे हैं कि पॉलन ट्यूब जो है दैट इज ब्रिंगिंग द टू मेल गैमीट्स अप टू दी एग। अब इस डायग्राम में एक और बड़ी अच्छी चीज़ जो है वो शो की गई है, 3 प्रोसेसेस। ये क्या है? फर्स्ट है पोरोगैमी। पोरोगैमी का मतलब क्या है बच्चों? भी अगर पॉलन ट्यूब की एंट्री थ्रू माइक्रोपाइल होती है दैट इज नोन एज पोरोगैमी। अगर पॉलन ट्यूब की एंट्री थ्रू चिलेजल एंड हो रही है दैट इज नोन एज चिलेजोगैमी। और अगर इनकी एंट्री थ्रू इंटेग्यूमेंट्स हो रही है, पॉलन ट्यूब की एंट्री, देन दैट इज नोन एज मीजोगैमी। सो पोरोगैमी मीन्स द एंट्री ऑफ पॉलन ट्यूब थ्रू माइक्रोपाइल, चिलेजोगैमी मीन्स द एंट्री ऑफ पॉलन ट्यूब थ्रू चिलेजल एंड, and mesogamy means the entry of pollen tube through the integuments. So this was about the different types of fertilization depending upon the entry of the pollen tube. And last, very important, what is the significance of double fertilization? डबल फर्टिलाइजेशन का क्या सिग्निफिकेंस है बच्चों? मैं एक बड़ा इंपॉर्टेंट इसका सिग्निफिकेंस बताती हूँ कि डबल फर्टिलाइजेशन में 2 इवेंट्स हुए हैं और यहाँ पे एंडोस्पर्म की फॉर्मेशन हुई है at the same time when the embryo is formed, so that ये एंडोस्पर्म अपना नरिशमेंट जो है वो प्रोवाइड कर सके टू द डेवलपिंग एम्ब्रियो। सो एंडोस्पर्म की फॉर्मेशन हुई है एट द सेम टाइम ऑफ द फॉर्मेशन ऑफ एम्ब्रियो। अब ऐसा जिम्नोस्पर्म्स में नहीं है बच्चों। जो जिम्नोस्पर्म्स हैं उसमें एंडोस्पर्म किसको कहते हैं? फीमेल गैमेटोफाइट को। वहाँ पे एंडोस्पर्म पहले बन जाता है, अभी फर्टिलाइजेशन भी नहीं हुई, अभी जाइगोट भी नहीं बना, बट एंडोस्पर्म पहले फॉर्म्ड हो गया। इट मीन्स प्लांट ने अपनी एनर्जी पहले ही वेस्ट कर ली एक ऐसा न्यूट्रिटिव टिश्यू बनाने में जो कि एक्चुअली किसको प्रोवाइड होना है? टू द एम्ब्रियो। बट अभी फर्टिलाइजेशन नहीं हुई है, सो अभी एंडोस्पर्म अभी एम्ब्रियो जो है वो फॉर्म नहीं हुआ है और प्लांट ने अपनी एनर्जी पहले ही वेस्ट कर ली है इन द फॉर्मेशन ऑफ एंडोस्पर्म। जबकि एंजियोस्पर्म्स में एंडोस्पर्म उस टाइम बना है जिस टाइम एम्ब्रियो की फॉर्मेशन हुई है, सो दैट ये जो डेवलपिंग एंडोस्पर्म है ये नरिशमेंट प्रोवाइड कर सके टू दी एम्ब्रियो। सो दिस इज़ वन ऑफ द इम्पॉर्टेंट सिग्निफिकेंस ऑफ डबल फर्टिलाइजेशन। दूसरी चीज़ क्या है कि डबल फर्टिलाइजेशन से जो मेल प्लांट के कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स हैं दे विल बी ब्रॉट इन दी न्यू generation. So this is all about students about today's topic.
This was all about double fertilization. We have seen that the growth of the female gametophyte that was stopped at 7-celled and 8-nucleate stage. The further growth of this female gametophyte that was stimulated by the process of double fertilization, and these two end products they are formed after fertilization. One is the zygote and the second is the primary endosperm cell containing the primary endosperm nucleus. Now these two products they will further grow and divide to form the future embryo and the endosperm. But there are certain other changes also which are taking place on the flower, and these changes they are known as what? Post fertilization events. Post means after, fertilization means the union of male and female gamete. So the events which are taking place after fertilization, that is known as post fertilization. Post fertilization events. So what are these events? Or what are the other changes that we will observe on the flower in which pollination and fertilization has taken place? We have done the different parts of the flower like sepals, petals, stamen and carpel. Now what will happen? All other parts of the flower like sepals, petals, stamen and style, they all will shed away, they all will fall because their work is done. Petals work was to attract the pollinators for pollination, and the stamen work was to produce the pollen grains. So they have done their duty, they will fall off. Now this ovule, which is present within the ovary, this ovary, it will change itself into fruit. It will change itself into fruit. Therefore, the fruit is defined as ripened ovary. Fruit is defined as ripened ovary. So this ovary will change itself into fruit, and the ovary wall, that will naturally change into fruit wall. And this fruit wall is also known as pericarp. This is also known as pericarp. Now within the fruits are present seeds, and within the ovary is present the ovule. So this ovule, it will change itself into seed. Therefore seeds are present within the fruit. So what is the definition of seed? Ripened ovule is known as seed. Now the outer integument of the ovule, as ovule is changing itself into seed, therefore the outer integument of the ovule, that will change itself into the outer seed coat, which is known as testa. The inner integument will change itself into the inner coat, which is known as tegmen. The inner seed coat is known as tegmen. So the inner integument of the ovule, that will form the inner seed coat, which is known as tegmen. The micropyle of the ovule, that will remain as such. Micropyle is a small pore which is present on the surface of the seeds. You can clearly see this pore present on the surface of seeds, and this is known as micropyle. The nucellus. As you all know that nucellus is a nutritive tissue which was present around the ovule. So this nucellus, it will get consumed, but however in some plants this nucellus is still persistent, and this persistent nucellus is known as perisperm, and this is present in case of nymphia. This is present in case of nymphia. The synergids and antipotals, which were haploid cells present within the female gametophyte or the embryo sac, they will also degenerate. They will also degenerate. So these are the other changes which are taking place on the flower after the process of double fertilization. Sepals, petals, they will all fall off. But there are certain fruits in which the sepal is persistent, and the example of that is solanum and lycopersicum. Like you have seen the brinjal. In brinjal, the small stalk which is present on its surface, that is the persistent sepal, and on tomatoes also the small stalk which is attached with small leaf-like structures, that is the persistent sepals. So persistent sepals, they are present on tomatoes and brinjal. So these are the other changes which are taking place on the flower after the process of fertilization. And the ovary, now this ovary, that is, or the carpel, that is left only with the ovary part. This is left only with the ovary part, and within this ovary is present ovule containing two products. One is the primary endosperm cell and the other is the zygote. Now this zygote, it will divide further and this will form the future embryo, whereas this primary endosperm cell, which is having the primary endosperm nucleus, this will divide further to form the endosperm. And both of these events we will study in detail in our next lecture. Till then, bachcho, thank you.